All right, I am here to dispel a myth about success. I was somebody that nobody expected to be successful, but the punchline of my life ends up being that I end up building 3 very successful companies and $1 billion company. And the reason that I was able to do that is not because I am gifted or that I have natural born talent. It's something else entirely, which is exactly what they want me to talk about today, which is this idea of building an unstoppable mindset. There's really 3 parts to it, and if you get the 3 parts and you run that system well, you really can accomplish just about anything that you want. And I know that everybody's gathered here today because you guys believe that you can have impact on the world. But the reality is, and I think that we all know this, the reality is that most people are not going to do anything with their lives. Failure is the most obvious outcome to everybody's life. So the question becomes, why do some people succeed and other people fail? I think it's a process, and I think it's a process that can be taught. And so I'm going to walk you through exactly what I did to transform my life. And I literally took myself from scrounging in my couch cushions to find enough change to put gas in my car so that I could go to a job interview, to building and selling a $1 billion company. And we took it from not existing to being valued at $1 billion in just 5 years. And so the question is, what is that process, and is it repeatable? And the answer to me is yes. So the first part, if you really want to do something extraordinary with your life, you have to recognize that you are having a biological experience. For better or worse, even as divine creatures, we are grounded to earth and this experience in a body. And that body works in a certain way. The mind works in a certain way. And when you think about building an unstoppable mindset, it starts with getting control of your biology. It starts with getting control of your mind. It starts with understanding that you have to get control of your emotions. For most people, the reason that they're going to fail is that success is a game of attrition, meaning that the difficulty of doing something grand, it's so extreme that it ends up breaking most people. Most people can't deal with the emotional difficulties of sticking with something long enough to get good. And so they get lost in feeling badly about themselves. And that was where I started. So when I was a kid, my mom, and I don't know if it's the same in the Middle East, but back in America, let me tell you, my mom all but kicked me out of the house. When I was about 17 years old, I panicked. I didn't want to go to college. I was afraid of what that was going to be like. And I got in this big argument with my mom. She tells me I have to go. She's kicking me out. I can't stay. And then she has spent every day since then trying to get me back into the house. And so one day I asked her, Mom, what is with you? You were the one that kicked me out. If it wasn't for you, I never would have left. I would have just stayed. I could have been your little stunted growth child forever. So why kick me out if you wanted to bring me back? And my mom's answer, bless her, oh, I just assumed you were going to fail and that you would come back. And I was like, whoa. So my own mother, when I left for college, thought I was going to fail. I asked my best friend, what did you think of me at the time? And he said, oh yeah, I just assumed you were going to marshmallow your way through life. That was his quote. That I was always going to take the easy path, that because I was so profoundly lazy, which I was, that I wasn't going to get anywhere. And then the man who is now my father-in-law, when I went to ask for his blessing to marry his daughter, he said, no. And he told me he didn't want me to marry his daughter. I had to respect the honesty. I was kind of impressed. But at the same time, what I realized was these 3 people knew me the best. The 3 people that knew me the best were the 3 people most convinced I was going to fail. And the reality is that they were right. At that moment, I did not have control of my emotions. I did not have control of my biology. I did not know how to take a dream and turn it into an executable plan. And this is where everybody fails. Everybody fails because it's easy to have a big idea. Everybody fails because it's easy to dream, but it is extraordinarily difficult to execute, and to execute well over time. So what I had to learn was that there were competing goals in my mind. Goal number 1, I wanted to achieve something extraordinary. Goal number 2, I wanted to feel good about myself. And this is where everybody trips up, because people do not understand that you are living right now inside of a frame of reference. Your frame of reference, if you've grown up here in Dubai, in the UAE, if you've grown up here, you have a very different frame of reference than I had growing up in a small town in Tacoma, Washington, in America. And that frame of reference is so pervasive, it colors everything about your life. But most people think, because your frame of reference is built on your values, your belief system, your routines, and your rules. And in that belief system is what you think you're capable of and what you believe is true about how the world works and whether you can achieve the things that you want to achieve. And in that, people don't understand that they've been making decisions about what to believe. They don't understand that they've been making decisions about what to value. And that if you want to get a different outcome out of your life, all you have to do is start changing those dials. What you believe about yourself, about the world around you. Albert Einstein said, the most important decision any person will ever make, the most important decision they will ever make, is whether they live in a friendly or a hostile universe. Now, the important part of that quote is that he said it's a decision. You get to decide. Is everything a miracle or is nothing a miracle? Is anything possible? Or are you so limited by who you are, how you were born, what you're capable of as a kid, that you're just on the path of fate and that there's nothing you can do to intervene? Now, what my life has shown is that you can become whatever you want, but you're going to pay an extraordinary price. To achieve something difficult, you must become someone capable of that difficult thing. What I say in the U.S. all the time is, if you want to win a championship, you have to become capable of a championship performance. You have to get that good. You have to push yourself to become capable of what other people can't do. And let me tell you right now, if you want to do something extraordinary with your life, you must get better than most people. You have to become capable of what other people are not able to do. And the first part, like I said, is getting control of that biology. If you want to do that, it's about changing what you build your self-esteem around. So I had those 2 competing goals. Goal number 1, I want to do something extraordinary. Goal number 2, I want to feel good about myself. The problem was feeling good about myself kept making me want to be around people that were dumber than me, so it made me feel smart. But if you surround yourself with dumb people, you're not going to get anywhere. So you have to be able to have the courage to believe that you can get that good, that you can get smarter, that you can grow and develop. So I had to learn to build my self-esteem around not being smart, not being right, not being better, faster, stronger. I had to learn to build my self-esteem around being the learner, identifying the right answer. And that brings us to the second thing. Humans are the ultimate adaptation machine. Every species has to choose a path. Do we have everything hardwired? Like a horse. 20 minutes after a horse is born, it can do all the things that a horse is ever going to do. 20 minutes after a baby is born, it can't hold up its own head. It's a radically different choice from a species perspective. There's a great quote that says, "It is not the strongest of the species that survive, nor the most intelligent, but rather the most adaptive to change." The world is changing rapidly. You guys are going to hear from Ray Dalio in a little while, and he's going to talk about how the world order is changing, how things are moving faster than ever. It's an extraordinary time to be in this country. But as things change, you have to be able to change with them. As your goals change, you have to be able to change with them. You have to develop a skill set that is going to match your ambition. Let me say that again. If you want to do something extraordinary in your life, you must develop a skill set that matches your ambition. If you want to win a championship, you must become capable of a championship performance. So the question is, how do you leverage adaptation? If we understand that the reason that humans have become the most dominant apex predator the world has ever seen wasn't by running faster or being stronger. It was by having a giant brain with a ton of folds in it. That was our secret sauce. That's what we did, is we have the ability to learn from each other. We have the ability to let culture stack. What I mean by that is we don't have to reinvent everything every generation. Your parents teach you what they learned, which they got from their parents, which they got from their parents, which they got from their parents. And so we're all able to stand on these shoulders of giants and do something unlike any other animal in the animal kingdom. We are able to do something truly extraordinary, but you have to make that choice to believe that it's possible. All of my success can be summed up in what I call the only belief that matters. The only belief that matters is that if I put time and energy into getting better at something, I will actually get better. Let that sink in. That is the truth of the human condition. If you put time and energy into getting better, you really will get better. And so if you put enough time and energy in a disciplined fashion into becoming great at something, you will actually become great. You can actually go do something, but you can't blame somebody else. You can't put it outside of yourself. You have to take that responsibility that you've been given. And the responsibility is potential. We're all born with potential. But virtually nobody does anything with that potential. The question you are going to be asked, that you are going to answer with your life, is what will you do with your potential? And that's the question before all of us right now. What are we going to do with our potential? Potential. You don't have to be born with something special. Humans are the ultimate adaptation machine. The average human is capable of the extraordinary if you're willing to put in the time and the effort. And that brings us to the third part. If you really want to do something amazing with your life, first, you have to get control of your emotions. You have to decide, I'm the learner. I'm going to value myself for my willingness to stare nakedly at my inadequacies, to know what my goal is, and to say, I've been blessed with potential, but it's my job to do something with that potential, to turn that into a set of skills that are aligned with the goal that I'm trying to achieve, which requires a massive amount of clarity. If you want to know what kills entrepreneurs, boredom and a lack of clarity. To get great at something, you've got to practice it over and over and over and over and over until you are truly able to do that thing without even thinking about it. And if you can do that, if you can put in that time and the energy, then you've really got a shot. So that's the first thing. You get control of that emotion. You get the clarity on what you're trying to do. The second thing is realizing I've got to go through that repetition. And then the third thing is what I call the physics of progress. If you want to know how I built 3 successful companies back to back, by the way, in 3 different industries, I built a very successful company in software, I built a juggernaut in nutrition and manufacturing, and I've now built a third multi-million-dollar company in media. Completely unrelated, all 3 of them. But every time I came in with a clear goal and an understanding that I have to transform my ambition into actual usable skill set. But then once you have that skill set, you're still going to be prone to failure. Remember, failure is the most obvious outcome, always. In fact, I will tell you this about life, and I think you're all going to agree, because I'm sure life has taught you the same thing that it's taught me. Success cannot be guaranteed, but the struggle can. Whatever you do, it is going to be hard if you're trying to do something that matters. And I will assume if you were here, you were trying to do something that matters. So I can't guarantee the success. I can guarantee the struggle. So how do you struggle well? What is the system? Because if you have to make it up, if you have to rely on being smarter than the next person, then your odds of success go down. But the reality is, again, remember, 3 people in my life all assumed I was going to fail. And yet I have been extraordinarily successful by virtually any measure. I ran the physics of progress. Now, the reason I call it the physics of progress, I don't think there's anything below it. If you listen to Elon Musk, you're going to hear him say a lot. You have to think from first principles. You have to stop dealing at the level of analogy and get to how does the world work for real in a way where there's nothing below it. It's just this is how the world works. Now, the physics of progress is very easy to summarize. The physics of progress is the scientific method recontextualized for an individual life. And it goes like this. Everything, always and forever, no matter what you want to do, it always starts with clarity. You must have a massive amount of clarity in terms of what you want to do with your life. And this is where a lot of people fail. And I hear young entrepreneurs come up to me all the time. They say, Tom, I got it. I know exactly what I want to do with my life. I'm like, yeah, tell me about it. I want to hear it. Let's go. I want to win a gold medal. In what? The Olympics? Yes, Tom, in the Olympics. Amazing. Summer Olympics or winter? Summer. Fantastic. Swimming or tennis? Swimming. Love it. Backstroke? Freestyle medley? Which one? Because depending on what it is you're trying to achieve, remember, you have to turn your potential into usable skill set. But if you're trying to win a gold medal in swimming and you're out on the tennis court, you're going to fail. So you have to start with that just immeasurable amount of clarity. So you know exactly what you want. Now, to run the physics of progress, you know where you are, you know what you want, and you have to identify the obstacle that stands between where you are and where you're trying to go. Now, once you have that, you're going to come up with a hypothesis. Now, if you're familiar with the scientific method, you know that all a hypothesis is your best guess. So it is my best guess of how I go from here, where I want to go, to there. Now, when my partners and I started a nutrition company, we didn't know anything about it. We came up with a recipe for a protein bar. We took it to a co-manufacturer, and we said, make this. And they said, we can't. We said, why not? And the reality was they didn't know. So we had to figure out the physics of progress, demand. You have to get clarity. Okay, what's that obstacle? The obstacle, ironically, who here has heard of high fructose corn syrup? Very few people. This is crazy because it rules the world in terms of manufacturing. And the reality is that manufacturing equipment came up in lockstep with the use of high fructose corn syrup. Once you strip that out, which we had to do to make the product that we wanted to make, none of the equipment works. But if you run the physics of progress, you realize, oh, all I have to do is make new equipment. And so we went from, hey, you guys want to make something that can't be made, to we made our own equipment, and in less than 5 years, we had $1 billion valuation. Because we ran the physics of progress. Where am I? Where am I trying to go? What's the obstacle? What's my best guess on how to overcome that obstacle? And then once you have that best guess, you run that experiment. We tried it. The first few things didn't work. Okay, you have to analyze the data. And this goes back to point number one. You're having a biological experience. Your emotions are going to mess you up. You have to find a way to get control of that. To believe that I'm an average human. I can learn. I can adapt. I can turn my potential into skill set. And if I do that, then I can do whatever I want. And so we looked at it. We said, what do we have to do? How do we adjust the equipment? Who can we talk to? How do we learn this? But we had to stare nakedly at our inadequacies at that moment where the first thing failed and not let our emotions try to make it somebody else's fault that it didn't work. We took responsibility, saw that we needed to make a change. And in making that change, then we could come up with another hypothesis that was a little bit smarter. And then you run it again. Do another experiment. How did it work? You stare nakedly at your inadequacies. You figure out what you have to change. You change it. You come up with an updated hypothesis. And you just run it and run it over and over and over. And if you run that simple setup of the physics of progress, you really can achieve anything in your life. And to button it up, the way that I know that this is true, my father-in-law, Andreas, a beautiful human being, When I asked for his blessing to marry his daughter, he said, "You're young, you're inexperienced, and you have no money. How do you plan to take care of my daughter?" Now, unfortunately, at the time, I didn't know the phrase, the physics of progress. So I just said, "Sir, one day I'm going to make your daughter a wealthy woman." And that was when he told me he didn't want me to marry her because he didn't believe that it was going to happen. 15 years later, as we're walking the manufacturing floor, and I've got 1,000 employees, hundreds of thousands of square feet, our product coming off the line, millions of bars a day, employees coming up thanking me for the job, and I was walking my father-in-law around showing it to him, and I said, "Andreas, do you remember when you asked me how I was going to take care of your daughter?" He said, "Yes." I said, "How am I doing?" And he just burst into tears. Not because he was wrong about me. He was right. But what he didn't anticipate is that if you do the 3 things I talked about today, overcome your own emotions, master your biology, understand that you can grow and adapt, and then run the physics of progress, there is nothing you can't do. Everybody go forth and change the world. Have a huge impact. Thank you.